on, Pa MAGA. We need to talk about how your daddy Donnie is bending over for his daddy Vladdy because the men who fought and died to defeat fascism would be losing their goddamn minds if they saw the absolute clown show shit he's pulling right now. They stormed the beaches of Normandy, froze their asses off, and crawled through the Pacific jungle fighting fascist dictators. And you're out there waving your pom-poms for Vladimir Putin like he's your goddamn prom date? Are you kidding me? Let's make something crystal clear. The greatest generation didn't sacrifice everything so you could turn around and slobber all over the boots of a shirtless horse-riding dictator who poisons journalists for fun and invades sovereign nations like it's his goddamn hobby. They didn't fight and bleed to stop Hitler just so you could cozy up to a guy who's basically a modern-day Stalin with fewer mustaches and more nukes. You're not patriots. You're traitors to everything they stood for. You voted for a Putin-loving dipshit and his bootlicking brigade. Do you even know what America is supposed to stand for? Or did you trade all of that in for a MAGA hat and a Facebook meme about Hunter Biden's dick? Because let me tell you, siding with Putin, the guy who's trying to rebuild the goddamn Soviet Union like it's his personal Lego set, sure as ain't about freedom or patriotism. It's about you being so goddamn stupid and petty that you'd rather burn the whole world down than admit you backed the wrong goddamn horse. Do you think the men who stormed Omaha Beach would be proud of you? Do you think the women who busted their asses in factories building the tanks and the planes that crushed fascism would look at you cheering on a dictator and think, wow, what a great legacy we left behind? No, they wouldn't. They'd be ashamed. They'd look at you cozying up to a goddamn autocrat and wonder why the they even bothered sacrificing everything for a bunch of ungrateful, historically illiterate dipshits who can't even recognize fascism when it's staring them in the face. And let's not kid ourselves. This ain't about owning the libs or making America great again. This is about you being so goddamn petty, so ignorant that you're willing to throw away everything the greatest generation fought for just to feel like you're winning. Newsflash, you're not winning. You're embarrassing yourselves, your country, and the memory of everyone who gave their lives to make sure we didn't end up exactly here. So I'll ask you again. Is this the winning you had in mind? Is this what you wanted? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks a lot less like winning and a whole bunch more like you're taking a giant, steaming shit on the graves of the greatest generation while waving a Russian flag. Congratulations, you short-sighted bootlicking You managed to take the sacrifices of our heroes and turn them into a goddamn joke. You must be so proud. Speaking of Russia, my guest this week is Michael Steele. Everyone knows Michael Steele. Michael Steele is also about to have his own, panel primetime show on MSNBC. Michael and I talked about this. We talked about a lot of things. There is nobody quite like Michael Steele. Thank God for his voice. I love this conversation. I always enjoy talking to him. I hope you enjoy it too.
Okay, I feel like the coolest person on the planet because the timing of this interview could not be better because I am now the privileged host of the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast, looking at Michael Steele in his extremely lovely library, a very bougie looking library, but Michael Steele of new prime time MSNBC television show slot, Michael Steele. Congratulations. And
Thank you, Joe.
Really good to see you.
It's good to see you. And we had fun the last time we were together. I suspect we'll have more fun because the stupid has only gotten worse. So.
Oh God! I was just watching. Did you see any of this cabinet meeting nonsense?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I'm just looking at the quote. The RFK says we have measles outbreaks all the time. What are we?
No, we don't.
Is this Botswana?
No, we don't. That tells you how ignorant this man is.
My God.
No, we defeated measles in this country. Stop it. Don't sit there and tell people that bullshit. That's a lie. What we're seeing right now is because we have a certain portion of our population that refuse to participate in the vaccination of our children and themselves to prevent these types of diseases and outbreaks.
I mean,
so there's a thing called herd immunity. When the herd breaks down, guess what? There's no more or very little immunity. And Texas is now in the hotbed, and other states will soon follow because, we don't have restrictions that when you get sick, you have to stay where you are.
I mean, can we talk about all the things we warned about? The things we warned about that this stuff was going to be coming. This attack on public health, this attack on public safety. I mean, we've got airplanes falling out of the sky right now.
Yes.
I want to get into the whole aligning with the access of douchebags, because that, like, Michael, I mean, I grew up the daughter of a Reagan Republican, okay? And I know this is not the party of Ronald Reagan anymore, but I
Right.
cannot believe what just happened with us aligning with Belarus, Hungary, North Korea, and Russia against our allies. I cannot fucking believe it.
It is you know, it's one of those things that a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to, and you know, because it's foreign policy and you know, the price of eggs,
Yeah.
and you just but you don't understand that that is a very significant part of who we are as a nation, our alliances, our role in the world, the partnerships that we form, and you know, when Reagan spoke truth about the Soviet Union, that truth still remains today because the head of the Soviet of the Russia is a former Soviet KGB agent who wants to remake that period, who was pissed when the Berlin Wall fell, who was pissed when Gorbachev capitulated and opened up Russia to democracy. That fight has been ongoing since then. And so here you have now the idiocracy in America under the leadership and guise of Donald Trump telling us that Putin is a better ally to us because Donald Trump wants a Moscow hotel. Because that's what all this is about. It's all transactional bullshit, right? Right? That's what it's about. But they're a
Yep.
better ally than the partners that we fought through World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan with, right? That have established the rule-based economy, rule-based foreign policy that has governed in balance the relationships around the world. There's a reason why that Belarus and Russia are the way they are, because they don't want to be a part of the nation states that align with democracy. And yeah, that vote at the UN was, while it was not important, it wasn't a UN Security Council vote and all of that. It was a low point
Yeah.
uh, for the country. And
What it signals to the world, to
yes,
what
yes,
it signals to them.
And Reagan Republicans, like myself and others, traditional, you know, foreign policy Republicans who are cut out of the Eisenhower school of thought. Yeah, we're sitting here scratching our heads, going, "What the hell are we doing?" And so and the thing about it, Joe, on the back end of that, there's a price to be paid. You know, there's a price to be paid here. And I've been saying probably for a year now, going back to a conference that I did with the Australian American Dialogue last summer, asking the question, who in Europe is going to stand up because the US is not capable of leading anymore?
Right.
Largely because we have a feckless idiot sitting in the White House who doesn't understand nor cares to understand, but only is concerned about his grift and what he gets out of it and how he benefits from it. We're not benefiting from any of this as a nation.
We're not, like, I know, a lot of people would push back on this, but I believe this to be true in terms of our identity as a country where, we were this beacon of democracy and we were the world's good guy, so to speak, right? I will say that that's the spirit of America that I grew up with, and I embraced, and my father embraced, and we are no longer that country because of Donald Trump. And it is to try and, I mean, at least in the eyes of the world, I would imagine, but I'm wondering what the cleanup on the other side of this dismantlement of, like, you hear the German chancellor saying, we are looking for ways to, to assert our independence from the United States. You look at Macron and you look at Zelensky talking about a European army. I mean, the 80 plus years of allyship, you can't just break it and then walk back in 4 years and be like, everything's fine, right, guys? Like, this really, this is really terrifying.
Well, so it is on a number of levels, and I will speak to one aspect of this that I think is important to note in the development of this. Over that 75, 80-year period, the United States has been the center of the wheel. It has been the spoke. It has been the thing from which everything else extended. Our allies over the course of those 80 years, to be honest, had become a bit more complacent about their role and responsibility for defending and protecting their lands. We are 5,000 miles away. We are isolated ourselves by the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. And so we here in the Northern Hemisphere, with Canada to the north and Mexico and Venezuela and South America to the south, we have a very different set of in the 21st century animating principles around defense and economy. And that's understandable. That's called evolution, right? It just happens.
Right.
In the course of all of that, there is validity to the argument that our European allies step up. It's not so much of, paying 5% of your defense budget. Okay, that's not the point. The point is how you vocalize your defense, because they are so disparate on the European continent. These are states that are 5, 6, 7 times older than the United States. All right.
Right.
They have been through this. This is nothing new for them. They were once great empires that are now sitting here at the knee of this little, upstart United States of America, who in 250 years had managed to dominate the globe, right?
Right.
But that doesn't relieve them of their internal responsibility. And to a certain extent, there's validity in what Donald Trump has articulated there. But it's how you talk about it. It's what is the purpose of making the point. And for what you realize very quickly is it's not from the U.S. position under Trump. It's not oriented from let's strengthen the alliance by you asserting more dominance on the European continent for your security and your safety, which we buy into and we want to continue to support. But we want to also, in addition to our leadership, see you assert yours. That's not what this is about. This is about Donald Trump doing Putin's bidding.
I don't want to get into that.
Putin wants a weaker alliance. Putin doesn't want NATO. That's what this is about. And so I think we need to be bright-eyed about all of this, saddling up and paying 5% of, they're not carrying their weight. That's all a ruse.
Right.
Because this is not about actually strengthening the alliance by taking these measures or advocating for certain changes. It is about weakening it and ultimately ending it.
For Vladimir Putin.
Putin.
So let's Russia hoax this a little bit, because it sure does increasingly look like all those connections to Putin, they're bearing fruit now, right? Like, people will say, oh, that's a conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. He still can't call him a dictator. He called Zelenskyy a dictator twice. Still can't call Putin a dictator. I mean, it sure does, where I'm sitting, like what you said, it sure does look like, he's doing this dismantlement or at least our removal from NATO, more or less, for Putin. But what do you say to people who say, oh, no, that's not true. That's a conspiracy. There's no connection to Putin. You're being ridiculous.
Well, look, take your head out of your ass and understand exactly what's out there. I mean, look, listen to the man. I mean, you can't state the observable,
right,
that Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. That's not a political judgment. That's an observable fact.
Right.
And when you, as president of the United States, can't say that, then that makes me go, well, what's Putin paying you? What's Putin giving you?
Right.
You've had a whole lot of meetings with Vladimir Putin that weren't recorded by the proper channels in our government. You have a whole lot of conversations with Vladimir Putin that aren't given as a readout from those conversations.
Mm,
So what are you getting out of this?
right.
Why are you so beholden to a guy who looks at you as a piece of lint on his clothing?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Vladimir Putin does not respect nor value Donald Trump. That's been reported in diplomatic circles.
Yeah.
It's
He's just
not
a
just our
useful.
European allies laughing at his ass. It's the very guy that he sucks up to, who thinks
Mm-hmm.
he's a joke, who knows he's a patsy, and he's easily movable. If all he has to do is go, "Hey, Donald, you want a hotel? Okay, we'll give you a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
You want to open up a Russia fund? Okay, we'll open
Mm-hmm.
up." That's all it is. It's all transactional. I mean, come on, Joe.
Yeah.
This idiot is now proposing, okay, here we go, America. If you want to become a United States citizen, we're going to offer you a gold card for which you pay $5 million,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to come in basically however you want. Now, who do
Mm-hmm.
you think who's gonna be able to write that check?
Oh,
Not your tired, your poor, your huddled masses
mm-hmm.
yearning to be free. No,
Right.
it's creating a new oligarchy of
Mm-hmm.
criminals.
Which he said, I know some Russian oligarchs. They're essentially very fine people. We very fine peopled Russian oligarchs.
So come on, I don't know what more. That's why I lost my mind a few weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
Joe, because I'm
amazing,
sitting
by
here,
the way.
people, and my friend Simone asked the right question. What should we do? Show you're paying attention to this shit.
Yep.
And
Right.
it gets to you, and you understand what's happening. Stop acting like, oh, this isn't, he doesn't mean it. Yes, he
Oh my
does.
God. Maddening.
I mean,
Maddening.
it is the quintessential abusive relationship between the people of this country and Donald Trump.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
he won't hit me again. Yes, he
Yes.
will.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. And I heard an NPR reporter just the other day, it was like yesterday or 2 days ago, they asked their guest, well, does he mean it? Is when he says these things, should we, again, still, it's 2025. This person incited a violent and deadly attack against our Capitol after saying he wouldn't accept the results of an election he lost, and then he didn't. And he said he was going to be a dictator on day one, and we are looking around. He's a co-dictator, I would argue, along with Phony Stark, but he is trying the best he can to be a dictator. Are we still in 2025 saying you can take him seriously, but not literally? What?
Yeah. And it's because that's what people want. We are where we are because this is where the American people want us to be. And we will be here, and the rot and destruction that flows from it will continue as long as they want it to.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't about, the cavalry of 2026 is coming. Guess what, baby boo? They may not. That cavalry may be shot off its horse before it gets here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to understand that this moment is being defined by you. You're allowing what the next iteration of this country to look like to take shape right now.
Amen.
This isn't made up, make-believe bullshit. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning and it's going to be Reagan's, morning in America again.
Right.
We're past that. We're watching the disintegration of our government. We're watching the shredding of our Constitution. And folks, it's not this. It's this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And little bites, and then all at once.
Piece by piece.
Mm-hmm.
And when you continue to do that, you go from something this size to this size. What do you?
Yep. How do you restore that? And that's the thing. It's imperceptible to so many people because
Thank you, Joe.
That's democracy dies in little bites and then all at once. And this is when people are raising the alarm. I want to ask you
and
this.
That's just real quick on that.
Yeah.
That's the Washington Post and their bullshit today.
Oh.
Where they're coming out saying, oh, yes, well, we are no longer going to, we only want to talk about two things on our editorial page, and there will be no dissent from those two things. You're a damn newspaper.
Used to be democracy dies in darkness. Right. I mean, honestly, this capitulation, the billionaire class, first of all, the oligarchy, like I'm over it. But like I know the average American person isn't all that dialed in all the time, and they may not understand what happened at the Washington Post. But a lot of these people, a lot of the Trump voters, are the first tranche to feel the impacts acutely of the shit that he and Elon are doing. They are the ones that are paying the price right now. They're losing their jobs. They're losing their insulin prices. They're worried about, measles and other freaking diseases that we have defeated, like you said. His own voters are like, wait, I didn't think my company would suffer from USAID. I didn't think my farm would suffer from this. I didn't think my family would be deported. Trump voters are feeling some of the impact first. And what I want to know, because you've seen some of these town halls, is do you think, first of all, that any of those people will see that, feel it, and then say, oh no, I don't want this. I'm waking up. I see this before my eyes. I know what's happening. I don't want this. I did not vote for this. I didn't vote for some foreign-born billionaire to have my social security number. Or do you think that they are believing the propaganda that he is spewing, that this was the greatest presidential month in the history of time, when in fact eggs are up, jobs are down, inflation is up, consumer spending is down, like all the wrong trends? Are they believing his bullshit, even though they're feeling the negative impacts of what he's doing?
I think some will, most won't. And I think largely as long as they stay dialed into their Fox Newsmax ecosystem, where it's just, it is all Trump, can do no wrong, his shit don't stink, all the time. They're, despots and their supporters will always communicate in a way in which they hold their tribe together, because of that. Part of it is for the tribe members, the realization that I've been duped. They don't want that realization to hit them, that I've been a sucker all this time, that I've been lied to. And we know from a host of other scenarios and situations, where people kind of come into that truth, and how it's like, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one wants that. They don't want that. They need that, but they don't want it. So I don't think they, in large measure, will continue. I think that was the success of bad leaders like Mussolini and Hitler and Napoleon and others in our history, who were able to level up that argument of connectedness and continue to reinforce it. There will come a point, though, where it breaks, and it doesn't break where among the masses. It breaks among the elites who decide that they've hit a wall, and that wall is when all of a sudden they're the ones being hauled off. The day that Elon Musk is, does not make $1 billion, that's the day it starts to change for him. Mm-hmm. Right now, he's fine. The man's made $600 billion, on paper since the election. Mm. All right. And so where does that place all of this for him? Well, keep that bank rolling out the cash. When the displays, you started out the conversation, the display with, in the cabinet room with Elon Musk sitting there, waxing poetic, and Trump just sitting haplessly at the table, letting him speak first before the president, which I thought was very telling.
Very telling.
All of that collapses at some point in time. But until it does, this ecosystem is going to continue to feed it. Mm. And the huddled masses around that campfire, listening attentively to the lies that are being told as fairy tales to them, that they want to believe, they'll be the last ones. They'll be the first, to your point, to feel the impact, but they'll be the last ones to acknowledge what they're feeling.
What about the self-gelding, as I call them, Republicans That's being nice. I mean, I often refer to them as punching themselves in the dick. That's what they do. If they're brave enough to even stand up, and not be bending over. But what the hell is going on there? This collective abdication of an abandonment of principles of every kind, like, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio knows better. That man knows better. I'm not going to give him a ton of credit, but in 2016, my sister, we are not aligned now politically, but we were at that time. I was like, you know what? If it's got to be anybody, it should be him. I don't understand. I don't understand, Michael. I don't understand if they all got together, the ones who still have, even if it's not public facing, some semblance of sanity. Why don't they pool their resources and say, guys, we can stand up and stop this? Like the Toons and the Tillises and what is going on there?
Because they don't believe in collective action, and they don't believe, they don't trust, quite honestly, those others in that collective action. So they won't all come together. I can tell you, wax you poetically on stories of trying to get some who've kind of moved off and into the democracy space, can't even get them aligned in this space to come out and sing for at least one bit on the same song sheet about why this is such a threat. Everyone has the individual lane that they're driving in. And for a lot of them, they don't have to pay a toll.
Yeah.
So they don't want to pay a toll. And that toll is, having someone in Trump world come after them, have Trump themselves say something about them, tweet about them. They can just, and instead of paying a toll along that trip, stuff is getting just pumped into their car. It's just like, you just go by the toll booth, you have to pay, but the toll booth is putting cash in your car, right?
Yeah.
And that cash is not necessarily money, but it is safety. It is, dollars that will come when you run re-election. It is not being primaried. It is all those things. And so there is the sense of distrust that if the 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 of us go out and say, okay, we're going to stand firmly against Trump, that 1, 2, 3, 4 of them will actually capitulate on the back end and throw them under the bus.
That's sad.
That goes to the, hitting yourself in the dick portion of your program.
Yeah. Yeah. Because their car, not to mention, okay, yeah, they're getting that safety and that cash. It's like, and the access and all the things. But at the same time, that car is getting shit chained to the hubcap. That's like, oh, is that a dog? Was that a kid?
Right.
Is that the Statue of Liberty? Are you chaining the Statue of Liberty to the back of my car? Like, and they're just like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to keep on driving towards the edge of this cliff. Because as you know very well how authoritarians work, just to your point earlier, they're this useful. They're not going to be useful forever.
Right.
It doesn't need them long term. Whatever is happening with Elon, and honestly, who the hell knows what that's all about? Because now he's letting him do pressers in the Oval Office while he just stands there and the kid tells him to shut up. And he's letting him lead the cabinet meetings, all this other shit. There's like something is going on there. His hand and the bruise. It's like dying. Like, is they going to tell us if he dies? I don't know.
I know, right.
I know, like, honestly, they're going to weekend at Bernie's this shit and then just make Barron the president, even if we never hear him speak for the rest of his life. Like, it's fucked up. But like, they have to know with Donald Trump, as you know, you are only as useful as you are useful. And then he is going to cut you loose or stab you in the back or whatever it is. How do they all not realize that no matter how loyal or feckless or dick punching they are, it's still got an expiration date and not any of it is going to be good for them.
Yeah, and the thing is, most of them do recognize there's an expiration date, but they think at that point they will be safely somewhere else.
Yeah.
And will have survived this. And the other side of that is the thinking that we can wait this out. Trump will be gone in 28. I'm putting a pin in it right now. No, he won't.
Mm-mm.
There are already efforts to amend the Constitution to allow him to run for a third term, people. So just stop it. You know it's there. Anyway. So that part of it is also a big piece where they think that on the other side of this, we can get back that old line traditional Republican Party and continue to move forward. That's gone.
Yeah.
That MAGA base is not going to allow that to happen because, in large measure, those Republicans who identify with Eisenhower, Reagan, Bush, they're gone. They're leaving. I'm like one of the last of the crazies from that crew that's left. I'm like the worst form of a Motel 6. I got the porch light, I'm keeping the porch light on, but these bastards keep shooting it out, right? I'm gonna get another bulb and put it in, here, GOP, put the light bulb in and, keep that shining city on the hill alive. But the reality of it is that a lot of those folks are gone or leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, when you get to the other side of this, you're going to look at a wasteland of republicanism and not find people to support within that party structure these ideals, these principles that we were just talking about on the foreign policy side with Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
This party is aligned with Vladimir Putin, Viktor Orban, Proud Boy,
Lukashenko.
the
Yeah.
AFD. So this is where they are. But here's the thing to keep in mind, too, from a historical perspective, Joe. This is not new for the Republican Party. This party has always struggled against its devils, its worst angels, and has always had this sort of done this dance with right-wing nationalism in the 1930s, in the 1950s, the 1960s, on the heels of civil rights, embracing the resurgence of segregationism. That was the Southern strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Reagan, as much as I identify and just really kind of support the Reagan philosophy, he started his presidential campaign in 1980 in Mississippi, to remind white Southern men of that nexus between the party and nationalism and the KKK. So the party has always struggled with that. As a national chairman, I had to deal with that, which is why I gave a speech declaring that the Southern strategy was over. We were no longer going to be that party that embraced tangentially segregationist tendencies that had driven the party since the 1930s. So this now has been renewed in Trump. It has been leveled up and embraced full-throatedly by MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a fuller representation of what this party is. In fact, final point, I wrote a piece last week in the MSNBC Daily on the foreign policy part of this, talking about how what we're seeing is such an aberration. But then I made the point, maybe the real aberration was Reagan and what he was saying about Russia and our role in the world. But instead, Trump is just showing us who Republicans have always been and who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And so for folks like myself and others, that's part of the coming to Jesus that we have to go through in reconciling ourselves with what this administration, not just what this is doing from a policy standpoint in the purging of government, but what it means as a party that we now have full-throatedly elected a right-wing nationalist, racist-oriented party that is going to take the country into a very dark space.
I mean, it is so true, and that's always sort of been, and I hate giving him any credit for anything, but one of Trump's talents has been like shining a light on the things that people used to think that they had to sort of keep quiet, or that they couldn't express out loud, and they had to reserve those comments for, for being in their private moments, because they were meant to be ashamed in public. And he basically ripped the Band-Aid off of that and said, no more political correctness, DEI, this war on DEI, and all the woke nonsense. But for the party at large too, it's really resonant. It's kind of like they echo each other, because leaning into your worst tendencies. It's like Palpatine from Star Wars or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like give in to the dark side. It's much easier to go that way and yield to those not better angels. And that's both the American people and I think the Republican Party. And one big difference too is that the Republican Party had gatekeepers once upon a time.
Yeah.
And like you had said as well, you were written about in Tyranny of the Minority, which is the follow-up book to How Democracies Die, because you did have this approach to diversifying the party's base that other people who had your position did not. And that was your intention. And clearly that is not the way that the party decided to go. They decided to go this populist route and authoritarian route, despot curious route instead. But I want to just real fast pivot to something I'm curious about, because while we can diagnose an autopsy with the Republican Party all day long, I want to know how you think the Democrats and the media, but the Democrats in particular, my party, how they're doing, how they're meeting this moment, and why so many people that I am encountering out there are asking me, where are they? Like, this is a question. I don't know if you hear this. I hear this, and I'm really dialed in. So I see Chris Murphy out there. I see Brian Schatz out there. I see Cory Booker and Andy Kim out there. But I don't think largely the people who are like, where's Batman, are seeing any Batman. So how are the Democrats handling this, and how is legacy media handling this?
Well, Batman is still trying to figure out where the Batcave is. So that's part of the problem, trying to discover what needs to be said in this moment, how you say what needs to be said in this moment, and more importantly, who's your audience? Because there's an inside-outside game that has to be played simultaneously. And I think the Democrats are trying to play them one at a time. The inside-outside game is internally. What do we do to sort of regroup the troops and get them forward-facing to go into battle against this monster that's out there at the gates, which is now broken through the gates and is tearing up the village. That's the inside game. The outside game is those other villages around ours, right? How do we connect to them to get them to help us in fighting this monster? Right? Because while the monster is attacking a particular village, yours is next.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure you're aware that what is happening here will happen to you. What is happening to federal workers is going to happen to farmers, is going to happen to producers, is going to happen to, manufacturers.
Factory workers. Yeah.
Factory workers. It's going to happen to teachers. Right.
Teachers.
So all of these other villages.
Women.
Exactly. Have to be alerted as well. And that's where the messaging, in my view, has been complicated for the Democrats, because after the loss of the 2024 election, and there are now stories coming about questions and suspicions about all of that. Fine. You can't look backwards at this point.
No.
You're not that party that wanted to say, oh, this was actually a fixed election, because there's no way in hell Donald Trump won all 7 battleground states, right? That's not what the Democrats have been. That's not where their head is. That's exactly what Republicans would have done.
Yeah.
Had that turned out to be the case, because that's, again, going back to the previous part of our conversation, that's who they are now.
Right.
Democrats have to figure out where they are in this space in the village, and how are they doing that inside-outside game, connecting the inside to the outside and the outside to the inside. And so, yes, Chris Murphy and others are out there kind of singularly standing there with their arrow, with their little fire on the tip, firing it at the monster, and some of it may hit the monster, but most of it bounces off, because it's not a concerted barrage of attacks, if you will, and that's folks, a legitimate term to use, because that's the space we're in. What's your counterattack to being attacked?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't see that. Now you have a new chairman, Ken Martin, I believe,
Yep.
at the DNC. We had him on our show last weekend. He's traveling around the country, again, doing the inside game, but a little bit of the outside. And I get the ramp up. For me, when I came in on the heels of a very disruptive presidential election and off-year election in '06, where the brand sucked, we were hemorrhaging voters, donors. Voters were not feeling the GOP. Our base was pissed at us, etc. I had to figure out quickly to do an inside-outside game because I had two very consequential elections coming up that November. One of them in your state, and the other in Virginia. And so my point is, you don't have time to sit around and open up a stack of papers and try to figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have to innately get on the ground, go out there and just have the conversation, which is a lot of listening to people. Because in that inside outside game, you're going to hear from the outside and the inside pretty much the same thing. And so don't dwell on trying to figure out why you lost. You lost.
Hey, I'm over it.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You lost. Okay. But what you do want to know is, in the loss, what did people say?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Because that'll answer a whole bunch of the whys that'll be out there. Right.
Yep.
Because right now you're trying to find, why didn't it work for Black women? Why didn't it work for young white men? Why didn't we? Why, it's like, I can't do that. I can't compartmentalize to the nth degree. I've got to have a strip that I can put over all of that, that answers for me the why. This is why you lost, because your message sucked. And what did you say? Not much.
And where were you saying it?
Right. You didn't talk to people where they were. So there are a lot of, it's complicated, but it isn't. And so the Dems just need to, I think, to track their efforts, connect those dots inside, outside. As you're reorganizing the infrastructure of the party, relate that out to the public. Right now, Democrats should be organizing protests at small business locations in red states. They should be at the Social Security office in red states, right? I don't care if there are only 2 Democrats in that state. You organize a rally at the local federal office that manages the SNAP program or Medicaid or Medicare or whatever. And trust me, folks will show up.
Yeah.
That's because now they see, all folks right now looking for us, who's out there seeing what's happening to me and can do something about it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I just lost my job. My son's job is threatened. My daughter, who needs this medicine, suddenly now is watching because they've eliminated the $35 insulin. We're now spending $200 a month on insulin. So these folks are looking for a champion to help them deal with this. And that MAGA piece quickly slips away when you're watching your child sitting there suffering, or at least it should.
I think you're right. And I think also, even for people who aren't MAGA, but are starting to be like, oh my God, like I didn't vote, or maybe I wasn't really that dialed in, or I didn't vote for the top of the ticket or whatever. What I'm also seeing, we had a special election live Zoom with the Florida Democratic Party the other night for the three seats in the House that are coming up. And what I saw, the energy, Michael, on that call of people going, I need to do something. Give me something to do. Give me something to use, my hands, my voice, my money, my vote, something. I need something. And they're trying to be their own kind of Batman, right? Like they need, and it's not just them. I mean, we've seen in town halls where really red areas where people are saying like, this is not what I voted for. And now they're not going to do town halls. But like, I think there's an energy out there right now of people who are like you said, who are looking at their child going, my child has autism and I may not be able to send them to school because depending on what happens with the Department of Education, there won't be special programs for my child. Or I'm now working, you know, what they do with OSHA, who knows? And or I've lost my job entirely. Whatever it is, they are starting to feel those things. And hopefully it kind of snaps them out of some things, but also gets people activated and gets them involved. That's what I'm hoping. So, Michael, when does the new show start?
The new show's starting in about 6 weeks or so on MSNBC, 7 p.m. weeknights. You know, there's a lot of transition that goes into these things, and so we're working through that right now. I'm hosting this week. Simone, I think, will be hosting next week, and Alicia after that. So we're gonna be rolling out variations of us hosting before we all kind of come together with the big bang in about 6 weeks' time. So
I love it. I'm so excited and I'm so glad because your voice is so desperately needed always, but especially right now. And I love the way you keep it real. And you know, I want the same sense of humor, but also like just the same fucking fight and all hands on deck. But good luck with the show. Break a leg with the show. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on my little podcast from your very bougie library.
Anytime.
Right. You got to come on over it with me and Tara and Julie and Michelle one of these days too. You got to do it. You gotta do it. I mean, ladies, poor ladies, forget it. All right. Well, this concludes this episode of the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. Thank you again to the incredibly gracious Michael Steele and the incredibly badass Michael Steele. I always love these conversations. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here. See you next time.
All right.